Yeah. Hello, everyone. Good morning. So, today we are in a session to see what is new and upcoming at SOCRadar. Since we have just started, we'll wait a few minutes for people to join in case someone is still taking their time to join the webinar. And in the meantime, if you have any questions, feel free to post them during the call or maybe even in the end. And we can go through the queries and discuss any details either during the session or in the later stages, whichever way is best for everyone. We'll wait one more minute and then start with the webinar. Yeah. So I am Vidit. I am the technical account manager here at SOCRadar. I look after all the technical product related queries that customers face while using SOCRadar platform and SOCRadar products. And if you are using our freemium version or even any other module, if you have any queries, feel free to reach out to me either through the official support channel or something like LinkedIn, and we can discuss the details ahead. Now, the main agenda for today's session is to see what all has happened till now with SOCRadar in the past year 2025 and what other changes will be rolled out in 2026. So we will actually go through what has worked, what all new features were actually used by different customers, were fruitful for them, and see how they are being improved further while we go into 2026, so that all features and techniques given by SOCRadar can be utilized to the fullest. Now, the main agenda for this particular session will have the following points. So, first will be to check what all happened in 2025, what changes were used, then details regarding the agentic security and AI driven decisions. So, basically, how different smaller AI agents or agentic AI, as they call it, have been embedded into SOCRadar platform and how it has helped customers and even different users to complete their workflow without having to be in the platform all the time. Once they have set up the AI agent to carry out certain tasks, the agent has been able to review the available data and then either close an alarm or assign it to a specific user. Then next is threat intelligence and how it is being reconstructed. So threat intelligence is one of the major element of SOCRadar, and this particular module is continuously being updated to suit the different needs of different customers. Then next is CTEM in practice, that is ASM and the ASTA module. This mainly looks after the attack surface management provided by SOCRadar, how different scans are carried out, how different checks are done to make sure that all the publicly accessible vulnerabilities in a particular environment can be detected and presented so that the relevant team can start working on them and close the risks. Then next is digital supply chain risk evolution. So supply chain is something that is affecting all organizations at this point. The organization may be completely secure, but their vendors may have some risks, and if the vendor gets compromised, the main organization also gets affected. So monitoring your supply chain vendors and making sure that they are secure is also a crucial step, and we'll see what new things are being done by SOCRadar to ensure that the vendors don't get easily affected. Then we have details regarding the new APIs and AI ready platform. So multiple new APIs have been added to SOCRadar, which help to export all the data from SOCRadar to the respective SIEM tool firewall that you are using. So all of it can be exported. If you have different AI agents, MCP servers running in your own environment, data can be processed by them, and a final output or result can be generated, which is what you want and what you need, and all the processing will be controlled by you. SOCRadar will just give the data with the APIs. Then key takeaways from 2025. So basically what has worked and what is being improved further, and finally what's next in 2026. So this has the main roadmap highlights, new features that are being added to the platform, and how they will be helpful in the long run, so that people get most value from the platform, and their feedback also gets taken in, so that new features can be fine tuned according to the feedback. Oh, we'll move to the first slide. Main thing regarding the agenda, what's new and what's next. So, why 2025 was a turning point for SOCRadar? So, 2025 was the main year where we started adding more AI capabilities into the platform. This is where small elements of AI were added in a bigger way in SOCRadar. So initially we just had an AI reviewing agent that would review alarms and give recommendations. But in 2025 we added the SOCRadar Copilot. So basically a chatbot with which you can share any details. It will review the data and generate a response. You can ask it details regarding a particular threat actor, what are the IOCs for it, which are the URLs which could be malicious, and details regarding registrars for malicious domains, how they can be blocked. This all runs within SOCRadar's environment. So no data is ever sent out. Everything is within SOCRadar, and the integrity and security of all the discussions that you carry out stays maintained. No third party can leverage it or enhance their own capabilities with what is being discussed with the Copilot. Then major platform capabilities released in 2025. So multiple new features were added to the platform. Main few will be the Astra scanning module, which lets you decide which CV or which vulnerability needs to be checked for which particular asset. So earlier it would run a big scan all assets, and that would take time. But with the main Astra module, now the platform can go and run targeted scans for the specific vulnerability asset that you want to monitor, and this can be even customized to run at the time that you want. So it will run exactly at 10 p.m. when there is less network load and other activities won't get impacted. And in the latest versions we have also added different server locations. So let's say your assets are geo restricted and they can be scanned only from India. So in that case you can use a India based SOCRadar instance to scan the vulnerabilities, so that you don't have to worry about any geo restrictions. Data will be the way you would want from local scanners. Then how these changes impacted real world security operation. So one main use case for this will be the different MCP servers that are running in different customer environments, and how customers are using them. So we have one customer who is sending all the data from SOCRadar into their MCP server. In the case of leak credentials, it actually goes, checks with the AD if the password is something that is being used by a user, and alerts them if the IDs and passwords match. So this means the customer team doesn't really have to review all the leak credentials. The AI agent or MCP server will do all the work and give only the actionable intel. So rather than reviewing 200 different records, they just have to check 2 or 3 records, inform the users, and get started on with other steps. And finally, short look at what's coming in 2026. So this will be regarding the new features that have been added so far in 2026, and some of the new ones that will be added in the upcoming months. Now, first is 2025, a transformation year. Why 2025 mattered? Shift from feature based monitoring to decision driven security, AI and automation became operational, strong conversion of all modules. So that is CTI, DRP, ASM, identity, and supply chain. And platform evolved into an API first AI ready architecture. So we'll go one step at a time. First thing is shift from feature based monitoring to decision driven security. Now, with the way different modules are cooperating with each other, you don't have to look at just the alarm that is generated or one data set that is given to you. In case there is any data set getting leaked on Telegram or Discord channel, then SOCRadar platform will let you check details regarding that particular data set in different modules as well. So you will also be able to see the raw data dump of all the details leaked by the threat actor or the Telegram group, review how or why your domain is mentioned in it, and depending on the other data set, act and see what actions need to be taken to make sure that you are safe. So you don't have to stay restricted to one particular module. You can see what other details are available, then decide and make sure that your organization security doesn't get affected. Then we have AI and automation becoming operational. So with the new changes, there are different AI agents that are being added to the platform. So one major use case will be monitoring of newly registered impersonating domains. So in case your organization's domain name is something common or a generic keyword, then there'll be multiple different domains being detected, and that will be quite noisy to monitor. With the new AI agents, we can set additional instructions, rules to check for logo of the company, see if any hash value of an already existing logo is present in the new registered fake page. And depending on all the elements that get detected, we can take an action. And if we see that the risk score is quite high or the phishing score for that particular asset is very high, takedown can be started for it, so that the fake site misusing the trademark logo can be completely removed, so that no other entity becomes a victim to this data that has been uploaded on the fake site. Then we have strong conversions of CTI, DRP, ASM, identity, and supply chain. So this basically are the fundamentals of what we call XTI at SOCRadar, Extended Threat Intelligence. Rather than depending on one particular element, you can utilize all the available features and then see. So, for example, if you are monitoring a third party vendor and they get mentioned in any breach, rather than just being dependent on that particular breach and the data that has been leaked through it, you can use the other modules and see what other details regarding that particular vendor's domain are publicly available. This will help you to find out the other ways in which that vendor could be impacted, they could be attacked by different threat actors, and how it could end up being a risk for you. So these details can then be shared with the vendor to make sure that they go and patch their setup and make sure that they don't become a victim or they don't get affected because of any data leaks or any security issues that are getting detected. And finally, we have the platform evolving into an API first AI ready architecture. So, like we discussed earlier, there are multiple APIs that can be used not just to send data from SOCRadar to your different tenant, but even you can send queries to SOCRadar using our API calls and get a response through it. So, that makes sure that you don't have to log into the platform every time to check any new details. You can just use the API call to send in, let's say, an IOC or hash value, get additional details regarding it. Depending on the risk score, you can either block it on your firewall or make sure that the URL gets blacklisted so that no internal user accesses it. So all these steps help to make sure that you can integrate SOCRadar with all possible softwares or systems and not be reliant just on manual actions. You can automate the complete workflow. So let's assume you are consuming IOCs from SOCRadar. If they have a trust and risk score of higher than 50, those can be sent straight away to your firewall for blocking. So this will ensure that most of the malicious URLs, IOCs already get blocked on your firewall, and there are less chances that your employees could fall victim to any such malicious site which have already been reported by different vendors, different entities all over the security landscape. Now, next is agentic security and AI driven decisions from detection to action. So, AI agents can automatically evaluate alarm, mark them as true positive. Customer AI rules can be set per alarm. Automated actions suppress, approve, assign, and escalate different alarms or tickets. Transparent logic across phishing and impersonating workflows, and significant reduction in noise with higher analyst trust. Now, first is AI agents automatically evaluate alarms. So, in this case, one example is regarding the impersonating domains. We have a separate AI agent which is trained just for detecting impersonating domains. Whenever a new impersonating domain is detected, the AI agent will evaluate it. If it is just something like a landing page or a blank page or just a registered domain that doesn't have any page, then the AI agent will mark it as low risk, false positive, because there is no action. But if the AI agent detects some content on it, or if it sees that it has an active MX record, then the agent will alert you and ask you to evaluate it further. Depending on all the available elements, then you can decide whether a takedown or monitoring is needed, or you can just ignore it. This makes sure that you don't have to look at all the newly registered domains. You can just concentrate on the one which could be high risk or which are more similar sounding to be used as phishing sites rather than all the domains that come up. Then next is custom AI rules per alarm and alarm type. So SOCRadar allows you to set up additional rules depending on your use case. So for example, in the case of leak credentials, different rules can be set to discard credentials containing Gmail, Hotmail IDs, or a different rule can be set to make sure that if the leak password does not match the regex or complexity for your password policy, those alarms can be marked as false positive. So this will ensure that you don't spend time looking at different leak credentials which are not complex enough to be something that can be used for your environment, and you can concentrate only on the true positives which can be used to affect a user or log into the system. This will help to save time. The next is automated actions to suppress, approve, assign, and escalate. Now, depending on the requirement, different alarms or tickets can be assigned to different users. Let's say one analyst is looking after domain ABC. Then, whenever that particular domain gets detected, all tickets or alarms specific to that domain can be assigned to a specific user. So, the manual process of assigning tickets to different users gets eliminated. Even in the case of escalation, if there is any news regarding your third party vendor and there are certain keywords like hack, breach, CV, risk, then those can be automatically escalated as high severity and alerted to you. So any non sensitive mentions regarding the vendor can be ignored. You can concentrate only on the ones that could potentially affect you. Then next is a transparent logic across phishing and impersonating workflows. So for the detection of phishing impersonating domains, there is a separate agentic AI, and customers have access to the complete workflow. So that lets customers change how the alert domains can be alerted to them. They can decide to ignore all domains which are smaller or lesser than 3 characters because that could be noisy, or ignore the ones that don't have MX record. This helps to make sure that the alerting process is the way customer wants as per their requirement, and it can be fine-tuned, updated, changed anytime during the use. So customers or you have full control regarding what gets alerted to you, and it can be updated according to your requirements. And finally, there is significant reduction in noise with higher analyst trust. So since these AI agents and their outputs are being monitored by us, we make sure that the results that we get are actually what analysts require. So the ones which are marked as false positives are truly false positives, something that no one would want to check, or something that is not actionable right now, and only the actionable intel is given to the end user. So that makes sure that you don't get too many false positives. And even if there are some false positives, additional rules can be set to reduce the noise levels. This helps that your time is utilized properly for working on the actionable alarms, and the other ones can stay suppressed. Now, next module part is threat intelligence being rebuilt, smarter prioritization and identity visibility. First thing is about unified threat actor and ransomware intelligence, dynamic prioritization with impact and sophistication matrix, advanced identity access intelligence, stealer logs, breaches, credential resale visibility, botnet credentials, data transformed into actionable insights. Now, first part regarding the unified threat actor and ransomware intelligence. In SOCRadar, and even without logging into the platform, you can get details regarding the different threat actors, ransomware actors that are being monitored, and you can see additional details regarding the areas or regions they target, the sectors they tend to target, CVs exploited by them, MITRE attack strategies, IOC specific to them. So, if at any point you want to protect, let's say, a medical field from different threat actors, you can see what threat actors are targeting medical sector in your country, and then see their attack strategies and make sure that you are protected against them. We also have different threat hunting rules, Yara Sigma rules for different type of vulnerabilities. So these can be taken to see if your application can be impacted by any of the attack strategies, and you can make sure that your system is safe, doesn't get impacted by any of the threat actors. Next is a dynamic prioritization with impact and sophistication matrix. So depending on the risk elements, you can prioritize what actions need to be checked. The CV Different CVs that get detected will have different score assigned to them. You can prioritize the high risk score ones first, and then go for the low risk ones. That way, the ones which are being actually used by or used or exploited by threat actors, those get patched first, and the low impact, low severity ones can be patched, looked after at a later stage, so that there is less risk in the whole picture. Then the identity and access intelligence. Now this is a new module that is being continuously updated. In this particular case, you can enter any available domain or email id that you want to check, and SOCRadar will show you whatever available data is present. This also means that you can enter data of any other customer, or they can enter your domain's details, but in all cases plain text password is never shown, only the user id will be shown. So if you see data regarding any vendor or partner, you can take the user id, reach out to them, and tell them that, hey, this user's credentials are leaked, this is the affected machine, these are the details that are publicly leaked available. So how they can be misused. And then depending on that data, that vendor can make sure that the user's credentials get changed, the machine gets cleaned, so that that particular entity is less of a risk, and in future they don't become something that could be easily compromised. Then we have insights into stealer log breaches and credentials being sold. Now, stealer logs are basically data stolen by malware. It usually has the URL, user ID, password, and even details regarding the machine from which the user has logged in. So these details can be used to tell the victim that, hey, your this particular machine is compromised. It has malware installed in this particular location, you need to clean it so that in future additional data doesn't get leaked. Data breaches, they continuously keep happening, so whenever a new breach is detected, you will get details regarding data that is leaked and your mentions in that particular leaked data sets. Depending on the leaked data, you can take actions to make sure that you are aware of what data is leaked, and it cannot be misused to target you in any way. And lastly, there is credential resale. So whenever data or in main cases, credentials are being put up for sale over different marketplace like Russian marketplace, Exodus marketplace. We will be able to provide you insights regarding the data up for sale, and depending on your requirement, these records can be collected and given to you. So it will make sure that your data doesn't land up in any third party's hands. Only you will have access to it, and then you can decide how you want to approach and carry out additional steps to make sure that it doesn't continue happening. And finally, there is botnet and credential data transform into actionable insights. So the identity and access intelligence module has been updated recently to show how exactly the data is getting leaked. So it will show a complete workflow regarding how or where the machine got impacted, how data is being leaked. Once it is leaked, it goes to the C2 server where they are collecting it. From there, the owner of that particular malware tries to sell or reshare the data, and you finally get it. So the complete workflow will be visible depending on the data that we get, and then you can take additional steps to make sure that this doesn't continue happening in the future. And feel free to put in any questions that you may have, so we can discuss them while we are going through the details, or we can discuss them in the end as well. Now, next is details regarding the ASM and A.S.T.A module. A.S.T.A is basically Attack Surface Threat Assessment. It is a new module that was introduced in 2025. Then, asset discovery tightly coupled with exposure validation, custom scan policies, and threat driven vulnerability analysis, and faster, more connected vulnerability intelligence. Now, first is A.S.T.A. So, A.S.T.A, the new scanning module, lets you scan the required, let's say, IP or domain for specific vulnerability or CVE. And there are continuously more plugins added to the A.S.T.A module. So, this makes sure that whenever there is a zero-day exploit or any new CV detected, new detection plugins will be launched for it. And this will make sure that SOCRadar will be able to scan and check for any such new vulnerabilities or issues that are found. So, in case of any new zero day exploits, you will be able to get details regarding it as soon as they are available. Then we have asset discovery tightly being coupled with exposure validation. So SOCRadar is using not only the inbuilt SOCRadar scanners to look for any publicly accessible assets, but we are also collecting data from reputed sources like Census Shodan. So if they have picked up any details regarding open ports, new subdomains, those will be shown to you. And if there are any leak credentials associated with those subdomains, those will be shown together, so you will know which assets are overall high risk and they need to be checked first, and then you can concentrate on the low risk assets. And in all cases, the reason for getting the particular asset will be shown over the platform, so you can double check, cross validate what findings are being shown to you. You don't have to blindly trust details that are shown in the platform. Then next is custom scan policies and threat-driven vulnerability analysis. So the ASTA module lets you set up new custom policies based on your preference. Let's say there are two or three high severity IPs that need to be scanned more frequently. You may want to scan them every day for any vulnerabilities or any changes. Using the ASTA module, you can set up or schedule such scan, ask the platform to scan those IPs only at, let's say, 10 p.m. every night, and make sure that general system stability doesn't get impacted. So you get to have complete control on how scan should run, when it should run, and what needs to be checked during the scan. And finally, faster, more connected vulnerability intelligence. So there are separate modules regarding vulnerabilities for different products. So you can subscribe to, let's say, Apache Tomcat as a module and see what all vulnerabilities get detected for it. So whenever there is any new CV released for the specific version of Tomcat, let's say version 253, in that case the platform will alert you that okay, this new version this particular version has a new CV, and this is present in your assets ABC. So that will mark them as high risk, and you can go and look after patching them first before going for the additional assets. So this will make sure all your primary or high risk assets get scanned first, they get mitigated first by patching, and then the other low risk ones can be checked. Then next we have digital and supply chain risk evolution. So this is basically part of the supply chain or vendor monitoring. But in this case, we are not just monitoring your vendors, we are giving details regarding the global landscape, details regarding which new entities are being impacted, who are the threat actors impacting them, and how they have been impacted. So currently, supply chain intelligence with 2.0 is carrying out more than 130 security checks, and you get details regarding these checks on the platform itself. Then we have multi-module visibility across suppliers, improved DRP configuration and asset labeling, and stronger impersonation and brand abuse detections. Now, first thing is the new supply chain intelligence module. So, what this basically does is it lets you monitor certain number of third party vendors that you would want to check. Let's say Microsoft is one vendor whose products you're using, so you can add Microsoft for monitoring. And whenever Microsoft gets mentioned in any security related news, any new CV gets released for Windows or any of their other products, you'll be alerted regarding them. And with the new supply chain intelligence module, you can also download detailed high level report regarding their security exposure. So if any Microsoft servers have high vulnerabilities, then those will be showcased, and you will get exact evidence regarding the risk and a different risk score. This can be shared with the vendor so that they can work on closing the risk and make sure that in future there is less data getting leaked through them or for their own environment. Then we have multi-module visibility across suppliers. So what this means is we go and check multiple details regarding the vendors, not just their mentions over dark web leaks or their mentions in different security related news. We also go and scan their publicly accessible assets for vulnerabilities and show details regarding them. So you get to see in what areas that particular vendor is a risk and in what areas they are safe. And depending on the different scores, you can reach out to the vendors and decide what additional actions they need to take to make sure that they are less of a risk to you and your overall business structure. Then there is improved DRP configuration and asset labeling. So the SOCRadar platform basically lets you monitor your third party vendors as well. Let's assume you have a vendor from a different organization logging into your environment on daily basis for work. So you can start monitoring their particular corporate email ID, and if that ever gets leaked in any credential leak or any database leak, you will be alerted about it. So depending on the type of data that has been leaked, you can go and restrict their access, make sure that their machine gets cleaned, and there is no additional data leak in the future. And finally, there is stronger impersonation and brand abuse detection. So SOCRadar is constantly improving, and new technologies are being added to detect any trademark infringement or brand abuse cases. So whenever your trademark logo or fav icon for your site gets detected in a similar sounding phishing site or just a newly registered domain, you will be alerted about it. And depending on the content that is present, you can request a takedown or just continue monitoring that particular domain, so that in future if it ever turns out to be a phishing site, you will be alerted about it as soon as possible, and then you can take actions to make sure that the phishing page gets removed, it gets blacklisted on different sources, and less users become a victim because of that particular page. And all the takedown related activities are carried out in house at SOCRadar. So we go and reach out to Google, Bing, Safe Browsing, ask them to blacklist that particular domain. SOCRadar is a verified source on VirusTotal. So once that domain is marked as malicious on VirusTotal, all the vendors who collect data from VirusTotal will also start marking it as malicious. And most important, we reach out to the registrar hosting provider, tell them that this is a case of trademark infringement, this is a phishing site, it needs to be removed. So we make sure that that fake site is completely removed, and less users will fall victim because of that particular use case. Then next is API first and AI ready platform built for scaling and automation. There are advanced APIs across CTI, identity, fraud, ASM, and DRP modules. Then transparent API usage and credit tracking. MCP server enabling AI assistants to query SOCRadar, and SOC MSSP and SIEM ready integration for Splunk, SOAR, and Tejas system. Now, first is advanced APIs across different modules. So, advanced APIs are something that are provided in addition to the general APIs. Instead of logging into the platform every time, you can use the advanced APIs to send data to SOCRadar and get it validated. For example, if there is a sample file and you need to check if it is malicious or if it is safe to use, you can just use the SOCRadar's advanced APIs, send the file to us, get it triggered in a sandbox environment, and see what are the results for it. And all this can be done without logging into the platform, just by using an API call. So this will make sure that you save time while carrying out additional investigation, and you get the result that is needed. Then we have transparent API usage and credit tracking. So for all advanced APIs, there is a separate page where you can see how many credits are available. Whenever a API call is made, credit will be consumed, and you will be able to see how many credits are still available to use. So depending on that, you can decide to purchase more API credits or even use different modules, so that you end up utilizing all API credits in one day and use them throughout the year. Then we have the SOCRadar MCP server. So all customers who purchase the SOCRadar XTI module get access to the MCP server. They can send the data from SOCRadar into the MCP server, which runs completely in SOCRadar environment, get the data processed and get the output. So for example, you can ask the MCP server to collect data from SOCRadar and see what are the different threat actors targeting your country, your specific sector. It can even generate customized reports depending on the data that you require. And all of this is done within SOCRadar environment. Nothing is sent outside by us. So this makes sure all your data stays secure all the time. And finally, we have integrations with multiple applications. So if you are using Splunk, then you won't have to log into SOCRadar every now and then to check new findings. You can just use the built-in integration, send all data to Splunk, and continue monitoring it there. You can also get data from other sources into your Splunk instance and work on all cases together. So you will get more intel and make sure that your organization stays protected regarding all risks. Then, what are the keys takeaways from 2025 and what has changed so far? AI moved from scoring to acting. So, earlier, instead of seeing what all AI could achieve, now we have results and different elements of AI built into SOCRadar, and they can be used every day while monitoring different cases. Then CTI became decision intelligence. So rather than just using the cyber threat intelligence to look for data, you can use different modules and start deciding on the next steps using the data that you get from the CTI module. ASM has evolved into a continuous exposure management system. Rather than carrying out weekly or monthly scans, now the ASM module is scanning all your publicly accessible assets continuously. Tomorrow, if a new port opens up on a particular IP, you will immediately get alerted about it, or an SSL certificate is about to expire, or if we even detect an SSL certificate that was generated but never used, you will be alerted about it as soon as these detections are found, and you can act on it. And finally, the platform became automation first. So now with all the agentic AI use cases and different rule based customizations that are part of the SOCRadar platform, you can set up a workflow regarding your actions, which will make sure that if certain steps like ABC happen, then that particular ticket or alarm can be closed directly by the platform. You don't have to look anything into it. But if the data from it is something that is not conclusive, then you can assign it to a specific user. They can manually check it and then decide what actions need to be taken. Then what's next in 2026? The major roadmap highlights. Now, first is executive protection, digital and physical. This consists of unified monitoring of executive identity, impersonation, and real world threat signals. So, in this case, now going forward, once the new module is released, we'll not only monitor the VIP users of your organization for any leak credentials, will also monitor the internet for any new account that comes up using their image or their profile. So if someone is trying to impersonate the CEO, we'll be able to pick on it, alert you. You can verify if it is an expected profile or it is some impersonating profile. And if takedown is needed, we can go and get that fake account removed. This will make sure that the brand doesn't get misused, and basically the reputation of the brand stays intact. Next is event driven ASM and continuous exposure monitoring. Cha- Change triggered discovery, auto scans, and explainable asset risk. So the SOCRadar platform now is being updated to scan from different regions. So in case there are certain cases like geo restrictions, those can easily be bypassed by having different scanners in different regions, and will continuously scan all the publicly available assets using multiple different sources. So even if one source is not able to pick any details, the other scanners will be able to pick it, and you will be alerted about what all is publicly accessible. Depending on that, you can take actions for it. Next is brand protection 2.0 based on agentic AI. So expanded coverage with consistent agentic workflows. So going forward, not just for impersonating domains, but even for other modules, you'll be able to use the agentic AI and decide the workflow in which monitoring has to happen. Let's assume a new APK is detected using your brand's name. Then, depending on the additional details present on that page, you can either request takedown to be carried out, or you can request the agentic AI to alert it to a specific users who can manually review it and act on it. So this will mean that you don't have to wait for something to happen. You can ask the agentic AI to take certain steps and make sure that less time is spent in just processing the finding, and more time can be spent on acting on it. Then we have Threat Actor Atlas 2.0, behavior evolution and targeting intelligence. Since we are monitoring different threat actors, their activities, we have some details regarding what all actions they can take. So recently, we found out that Crunchyroll has been targeted by the threat actor, and they use a third party vendor to get into Crunchyroll system. Now, the same threat actor had targeted another organization right a few weeks ago, and again, third party was compromised to get into it. So, such behavioral patterns regarding threat actors are being monitored, and additional insights regarding them are being shared. So this will help you understand what all are the potential steps they can take to target different entities or organization. Then we have AI driven threat hunting, natural language guided investigations across CTI, ASM, and brand data. So the different AI agents can be set up with different rules to act on the available details. So let's assume a specific vulnerability is detected by the ASM module. Then the agentic AI can be asked to review and carry out certain additional steps to see if it is actually exploitable. If there are any threat hunting rules, if they are present, then those can be shared with you, so that you can start working on the exploit strategy and then go for the patching activity, rather than just seeing what vulnerability is present, and then going and manually hunting for the next steps that can be done. And then there is unified exposure score and executive dashboard. So this will help to set up new custom dashboard for the leadership team so that they can see what new findings are available from SOCRadar, how much new data is being generated by SOCRadar every week, every month, and they can figure out how helpful SOCRadar as a platform is being, and what additional insights you are getting out of it. And there are a few more features being added as well. So one is AI driven report manager, which is already rolled out into the platform. So you can ask the Copilot agent to generate custom reports for, let's say, only leak credentials, or leak credentials that do have URL and botnet or system insights. Other ones can be ignored. So once the custom template has been generated, you can schedule it to run every first of every month, and you get a new report generated for it. The next is end-to-end malware analysis. So now the SOCRadar platform also has a sandbox environment. So whenever you submit any sample file for testing, it will get triggered in the sandbox, and you will get additional details regarding the IOCs or other attack vectors inside that particular malicious file. And all data is kept only inside SOCRadar servers. Nothing is sent to any external server or any external use case or service where they can use your data for additional training. And finally, there is additional validation through Microsoft Entra ID. So whenever any leak credentials are found, we will go check with Microsoft Entra ID to see if the user and their credentials match data in your AD. If it does match, you will be alerted about it. If the user is not found, or the user ID password combination doesn't work, that particular record can be marked as false positive or non actionable. So you won't have to worry about it. Yeah. Now we can move to the Q&A session. Does anyone have any queries regarding the points that we have discussed so far, or any other third party point that you would want to bring up? You can post them in the chat section anytime. We also have freemium version of the SOCRadar platform. So if you are interested, you can use the QR code to navigate to the free trial page and subscribe to SOCRadar so that you can start testing using the products, and you don't have to give any card details or anything. You can just use your corporate email ID, sign up, see what is the available data, and in case any additional features are needed, reach out to us so that you can be upgraded to a higher version. And you can also generate a free dark web report by using this particular QR code. So it will show details regarding how many leak credentials or mentions regarding your particular domain are present on the dark web, and that data can be used to check in case any additional dark web monitoring details are required. So we'll continue staying in the chat for the next 10 minutes. If you have any queries, questions, feel free to post them here in the chat and we can discuss them. Okay, we have reached the end of the webinar time, so we'll end the session. If you have any queries, feel free to reach out to us and we can discuss them separately. Thank you for your time.